Hello, everybody. It's Dana Brooks, and welcome back to another episode of the Empower Hour brought to you by the Empower Plant from Fasig Brooks. I am Dana Brooks, and I am joined today by my law partners and marketing director again. I've got Rose Caswick. Hey, Rose.
Hello.
Hey, I've got Kimmy Hogan.
Hey, good afternoon.
I have got Lori Finn, our marketing director.
Hello.
And I've got our road warrior, Carrie Roan. Where are you? What are you doing right now? I think she's on mute. No, don't go off the road trying to get off your mute. No. You're Carrie.
Okay,
Carrie,
I'm off.
there you. Well, Carrie, what are you doing? What are you doing, girl?
Hey, so I am going to, every year I get together with my high school girlfriends. So I'm headed to Tampa for that right now.
I love this. Y'all, I was just telling everybody on this panel that I had made a goal list, obviously, because Jimmy Fasig's my law partner, and I don't get a moment's peace unless I have a goal list working all the time. And one of them is to really make female friendships a priority this year. And so I love what Carrie's doing. I love that. You know, you've got to put it on your calendar, or everything else will bump it off.
Yeah, this is our standing weekend every weekend, and it's such good food for our souls. And nothing has changed since high school. I mean, it's been 30 years, but we're all in the same place in life with kids and jobs and houses and husbands and mortgages and all that crap. And then we get together and we are silly and giddy and relaxed. It's really nice.
I love it. Talk about boys, talk about all that stuff. Talk about your crazy lives. I love it. Well, guess who we have as a guest this week? One of the people who's on my list of girlfriends to make a priority of in 2021. It's Elizabeth Ricci from Rambana and Ricci Immigration Lawyers. She is a lawyer. She is a mother. She is a wife. She is a community leader. She is a mentor. She is a role model extraordinaire. Welcome, Elizabeth Ricci.
Thank you, Dana. I look forward to being better friends with all of you this year. That's a great goal. And Carrie, I hope you have a great, safe weekend.
Yes.
Thank you.
I love it. Listen, before we do a deep dive, we've got to cover some basics. Rose, yes. What is this?
This is milk and honey. It's whipping cream, light whipping cream, honey, and rum. And it is in honor of a poet named Rupi Kaur. She's an Indian-born immigrant to Canada who wrote a set of poems when she was 22 called Milk and Honey. So
don't we love our literal interpretation? Poets? Don't we love our young women poets right now?
For sure.
Yes,
Salud.
Yes, we do. Salud. What is this? Is this a sugar crystal?
It's honeycomb. It's completely edible.
Love honeycomb.
This feels keto to me.
Eat this off camera.
You know, it's all natural.
Is it keto? It feels keto to me. No,
I wouldn't know.
Not with a honeycomb, not with the sugar, no. But it's
isn't that the sugar you're supposed to get? Isn't that the sugar you're supposed to get though? It's like honey or natural.
Natural.
Probably, yeah.
A little strong, but
it's going to be good for your immune system.
Okay, Rose, you continue to challenge yourself every week. You continue to stimulate our thinking of alcohol and feminism, and I appreciate you for that.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, tell us your story.
My story. Well, I practice immigration here in Tallahassee, originally from Brooklyn, New York. Like so many New Yorkers, came down to South Florida with family in the 70s or 80s to get away from the cold. And then I made my way back a little bit further north. I came up here in 2000 after meeting my husband in law school, Neil Rambana. He's my law partner. And he does deportation defense. And I do most of the rest of immigration with a couple of exceptions. And we have two little girls, well, not so little anymore, 12 and 15. And we love Tallahassee. It's a great place to raise kids and a great quality of life. So here we are practicing immigration. It's been about 20 years that we're doing it. And we're seeing lots of changes in those 20 years, including some coming tomorrow.
Tell me about them. Tell us about them.
What's new
tomorrow?
Well, you know, the president does have wide executive authority over immigration, and President Biden is exercising that authority for the betterment of our country. So tomorrow we expect 4 orders that will be about reuniting some of the 3,000 families that were separated. We're going to see an investigation into the root causes of immigration. You know, I was a Peace Corps volunteer. We were talking about that. I served in Guatemala.
Yes, I definitely want you to say more on that.
And, you know, there's people who come from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and not because they want to, but, you know, they're fleeing persecution, corruption, crime, poverty. And we have been treating people especially from those places in the world, consistent with our values. So we're going to be looking into one of the causes of that and to how to better treat people who are seeking refugee and asylee status. So we expect 4 orders along those lines tomorrow. We've already seen a couple of orders, which are great. We're keeping DACA in place, so that's wonderful. Added protections for people from Liberia. President Biden did put a pause on deportations, but then that pause was paused.
Yeah,
so,
didn't they have a lawsuit in Texas to, yeah.
So every day it's something new. It's a great area of law if you want to stay on your toes, because you wake up one day and it could be different than it is the next day.
Yeah, because the rest of us are taking a collective exhale, you know, sleeping better, just feeling more assured, but not you. You had a crazy show the last 4 years, and you're going to have a not crazy show, but just as active show, correcting some of the crazy show.
Yes,
now,
a
this
different
is my
crazy.
opinion. Okay, that's Dana's opinion, and I own it 100%. You want to get into it, call me, because I own it. Okay, I feel this. But you're going to be busy. You're going to be busy no matter what because of what you do. Why do so few people do what you do? Because when somebody asks me, do you know an immigration lawyer? I go, yeah, I know 2. They're married. They are in the same. But no, and I have looked beyond, and I do believe, I don't mean to misstate it, I do believe there are other people in our community who do that, but I don't know them. They don't enter my orbit the way you and your husband do, based on your civic outreach, your everything about you, how engaged.
Well, we try to be really active in our community. Like I said, we love the quality of life here, and I kind of feel like we have to help contribute to that. It is a complicated area of law. Neil is an immigrant. He's originally from Jamaica. So it's meaningful to him. He is a product of immigration. You know, his mom came over. In those days, a legal secretary could get a green card. She filed all the paperwork herself. And he was a derivative as a child who was able to come over through her. He calls himself Jamaican because he's been here for so long.
Love it.
And, you know, my family came from Cuba and Italy. Now we're talking about 100 years ago, but we're basically all products of immigration. So I took immigration law school. I had worked in an immigration firm before law school. I speak Spanish. And coming here, I thought I was going to be a lobbyist, actually. So that's why I came to Tallahassee. And then everything kind of lined up, all the planets. And Neil and I said, let's just do this with my Spanish skills and his immigration background and my having studied it. It made sense. You know, I had no money. We were both kids, really. I borrowed $5,000 from an uncle. I took out an Office Depot credit card.
There you go.
We took out ads in the newspaper, and we hit the ground running.
There you go. I love that. 100%. Carrie, you mentioned some things that you were talking to Elizabeth about before we began. What would you like to hear from her about or discuss with her, get her thoughts on?
So I've got a couple things, but I want to stay on the thread of the Peace Corps, because my backup, if I did not go to law school, was to go in the Peace Corps. And I probably should have done that anyway and then gone to law school later. So I'm interested to know what you did in the Peace Corps, and then also if anybody's listening that's contemplating the Peace Corps, maybe you could speak a little bit about how you get in and what somebody can expect and the reward that is being in the Peace Corps, if you know what I mean.
Brilliant. And also talk about AmeriCorps, City Corps, any of those kind of Job Corps things, what might be an enticement benefit to some people considering that if they want to take a gap year or they're just not ready to finish their studies or start work or whatever. I just love it, Carrie. Good question.
Yeah, that is a great question. So I love to travel. I always loved to travel when I was in high school and college, and a Peace Corps recruiter came to my campus and I said, this is what I want to do. So I flew to Atlanta, which was where the Peace Corps office was for my region. I did an interview. I had a business background. I studied international business. So that's what I signed up for. And since I spoke Spanish pretty well already, they sent me to Guatemala, where I did, I don't know if you're familiar with junior achievement. So I taught a 6th grade class, junior achievement.
Yeah.
Yep. And I had a women's communal bank that I ran.
Really?
That
That's
means,
interesting.
yeah.
I'm so into that. I want to talk to you about that. I'm very, very into microfinancing for women. I want to talk to you about
But
it.
when we say micro, Dana, we're really talking
You're a real micro.
really micro.
That's okay. I just know nothing about it, but I know I'm turned on about it, and I want to help other women in that way. I love it.
And it was a great way to do that. And this is kind of before that women empowerment was cool. You know, this is probably 96, 97. So what I did was I met with women, you know, I literally, I would hitchhike to get to these places. This is how you did it.
The best people.
Of course, no cell phones either. So, you know, and
back in the day,
I would meet with these women who, unfortunately, a lot of times the husbands would drink the family savings away, and they needed a way to protect their money. So they would save together. And usually what that meant was they would buy, you know, somebody would come to Florida, usually go to Miami, go to a Costco or a Sam's type place and bring back bags of candy and cookies and stuff. And these women would sell these things out of their kitchen windows, usually, one of the houses I lived in. And then the women would save the money they made from that collectively, and then they would distribute it among themselves. And it was a way for them to save without their husbands having a say in it. And it gave them some independence. It was really cool.
I met some women in the Bahamas who did that. Kind of like a little underground network of, you know, like you said, pre-hip women empowerment. But I want to mention this, Elizabeth. I'm an American Southerner, and that's who I am. And we have a saying called "She got it honest," and that's what I think of about you and your delightful, wonderful mother. You and I and your mother were all involved in a group of empowering women in the Northeast section of Florida, and we got to know each other. We would meet at her home, and it was just lovely. And I hope that I do this for my daughter. I mean, for all that she and I may not gel on, I just think our values are aligned, and our life mission and how we regard our role in helping other people in the world is aligned. And I saw that in your mother and you. And wasn't she a lovely woman?
Very much so. Yeah. And, you know, my daughters now are my legacy. It's not my immigration. It's nothing else. It's my girls.
Are you comfortable enough to say anything about them real quick? Because they deserve a shout out. I don't want to get involved in invasive, but you've got 2 impressive young women in your home.
Thank you. Well, you know, my 12-year-old is an athlete. She's doing track and tennis simultaneously this semester. She's on a roll, Girl Scout. In fact, my ring light right now is propped up on a box of Girl Scout cookies that she's selling, and I'll be with her all weekend selling her cookies. Real go-getter. And then my big girl is a go-getter of a different kind. You know, she lobbied the legislature when she was 9. She helped get over $1 million in funding. She wrote a book. She's been in the New York Times twice. They just wrote a book about her for 3rd graders in Florida. And she's just hitting the ground running too.
No, when I think of proud parents, you and Neil Rambana come right up into the forefront there. I'm so excited about it. Rose, what do you think about when you hear about Elizabeth Ricci? She is a woman-owned business. She's a lawyer. She's got a partner who also has a professional career. She's got 2 children who are killing it, but they're also highly engaged. You know, when your children have 8 more activities than you do, when their calendar is bigger than yours, oh my goodness. And that does happen. And she's also trying to contribute, give back to the world, make it a better place, and make some money. We got to make a living doing all this effort. Rose, what do you think of?
Well, you know, I've known Elizabeth for a little while, and I think it's an awesome person to know, way busier than I could ever imagine being. I don't balance any of those things. But I'm kind of curious about your practice, Elizabeth. Like when you say immigration practice, like, are you dealing with people who are completely undocumented trying to get some kind of legal status? Are you dealing with people, have got some kind of status and are trying to get naturalized? What's kind of the thing that you're dealing with more on a daily basis?
Yeah, and tell us where you deal with all that, because you're in a million different settings.
Yeah.
So immigration is federal practice, but because of COVID, a lot of what we're doing is telephonic and Zoom now, which is new because government takes a really long time to adapt to change, but they were forced to do that. So, for example, Neil has his hearings now, video hearings, which we never used to do. He would have to drive to Orlando for a 5-minute hearing regularly, myself too. Or Jacksonville for interviews. That's where immigration's closest office is. We also go to Montgomery a lot, Atlanta, Miami, West Palm, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale are kind of the places we go most frequently. But now it's all mostly electronic, but my concentration is what's called national interest waivers. Those are people who sponsor themselves for green cards, very highly skilled people. They're usually already here and they don't want to be tied to a particular employer, or they have some contribution that's so urgent that we can't wait the usual 2 to 3 years for them to get their green card.
May I ask?
The one I was working on before.
May I stop? Okay, so they've got a high skill. These are people who want to be here.
Correct.
Okay. It's not the people that we think are going to come over here, steal jobs, unskilled workers, going to rape everybody. It's not all those parade of horribles that we were told immigrants were. There is a class of immigrants that are like, these people are so highly educated.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Dana, because that's my concentration, right? These people, generally they have PhDs, do a lot of entertainers and stuff like that. But I want to go back to something you just said, Dana, about the stealing our jobs, So you know Schrodinger's cat, right? The cat is dead and the cat is alive in a box. I call it Schrodinger's immigrant. We call immigrants lazy, but we also say they're taking our jobs. You can't be both of those things at the same time.
And you know what I find out? I in my social circle, I know a lot of business owners, and they're not really on this bandwagon. They said, I need workers. I just want some workers. I don't want to get in trouble for hiring the hardest workers. I just think this needs to be fixed. Anytime somebody wants to come to me and they're just a good, honest, hard worker, I want to give them a job because I'm throwing jobs at people and I can't get anybody to do it. And I think that's why, now this is just my personal hypothesis, I think that's why we never got any immigration reform under George W. Bush, because he was a Republican and those people tend to, help out their fellow business owners. And, by being strict on immigration, you're going to drive up wages. You just really are. I don't like it because I think everybody ought to get paid a fair wage. You shouldn't have to toil the same way and get paid less because of your immigration status. It should be based on the individual contribution. But isn't that funny? It's almost like that was one of those little nasty American secrets that was helping both parties and both people in play. So they just left it alone.
Well, who benefits from undocumented immigration? The business person, right? The American business owner.
Yeah. And the other side is a person who, theoretically is kind and doesn't want to see children put in cages and separated from their parents. And we're just trying to say, I'm not trying to make money off these people. I just think you ought to treat every human being with a little humanity. So, well,
something I see in the business context, and I had it happen today, we have these mom and pop businesses that can't find American workers and have these hard workers who want to work for them and who they need. And then they hire them and then they get a notice of suspect documents from ICE. Had somebody today, she got a $120,000 fine notice because she had people whose I-9s weren't in order. That's a lose-lose situation.
Everybody's losing whenever we, just make these kind of blind assumptions, blind judgments, and then inform policy based on those prejudices, I think. But I don't want to get too bogged down because this is about the Empower Hour. And so many of us talked about having you on and we were so excited about it. We came up with some questions ahead of time. Like, I want to know what feminism means to you.
Ooh, good one.
I think it means being yourself and being who you want to be. It doesn't mean that you're defining yourself on what your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, for that matter, wants you to be. It's doing your best for yourself, You know, I wanted to stay in school. I wanted a degree for myself. It wasn't about being taken care of or anything like that. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I knew, you know, look Spade. I looked a lot different 20 years ago, and I'm going to look a lot different in 20 years from now. But I'll still have this, right? I'll still be able to solve problems and be compassionate and be somebody that you want to be friends with. And those are the kinds of things I think that feminists do. And they look out for each other. They empower other women. And you don't have to be a woman to be a feminist either.
Absolutely
I think my
not.
husband is a feminist.
Your husband's a total feminist. I love it. Kimmy Hogan, what do you think when you hear of what it means to be a feminist, and who are some of your feminist icons?
Oh, geez. I guess I think similar to Elizabeth, I've always been about just doing what I want to do and be who I want to be, and to try to push off the pressures of society telling me who I should be or what I should want because I'm a woman. And I feel like our society is growing by leaps and bounds throughout my lifetime, where we are not putting so much of a focus on gender roles.
Yeah.
Because that was tough. So many people don't fit into those boxes. And so, you know, the feminist movement to me is all about embracing the power of being who you are without it really being tied to your gender identity. So I guess that's what I think about it.
That's what's so hard about it. That's what is so hard about it, because you want to talk about feminism, but by that label, by that very word, you're tying it to a gender, which makes you think of a gender expectation. And that's exactly what feminism is trying to be against. So we need a better word. And I honestly wrote a book on this. I know everybody thinks this is fictional, but it is true. But that was one of the things I struggled so much with the editors and the formatting process. I'm like, the whole point of my book is don't box me in. Don't tell me I have to be this way. Don't tell me I have to conform. Don't pit me against other women because we're all competing for, you know, the attention of men because they are in power because they got there first, all kind of stuff. But it's just so weird that there's a paradox there. It's like, I want to talk about feminism, but I don't want to make it girly. I don't want to make it tied to being a woman. Let me ask Lori, what do you think when you hear feminism, and who are your icons?
Well, growing up, that was a 4-letter word in our household.
100%. It was the other F word.
Exactly. Backwoods South. And so my first thoughts of it were like, those ladies that just try to think they're better than everyone else. And that's what, you know, and my mom was the same way. She's like, oh, those women, you know, just trying to do this because, you know, so over the years, I've had to kind of shift around with that. And I come to really, it's not about being way over here or way over there. It's just being a woman and being just as equal as someone else, and not having to tell someone that, not having to, you know,
prove it every damn day.
Yeah. And let's just, you know, quit looking at what I can do and as a woman, or what I should do or anything else like that, and just let me do it.
Yeah, just leave me alone with your expectations. I wasn't put on this planet to make you comfortable with me. I keep saying that over and over again.
Right.
What are your thoughts when you hear the word feminism? I know you know the social connotation. What does it mean to you as an individual? What does it mean to you, and who are your icons?
Me.
You.
I didn't hear.
Yeah, you.
Me. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you call my name. To me, I like everybody said, it is just to be a feminist is to just be you doing you. To believe in feminism is to believe people can do what they want to do, believe they can do, you know, reach their pinnacle of their achievement in whatever field it is, regardless of gender. So it's almost like, obviously we need a word for it because we're growing out of people believing the opposite of that into, I'm here, I'm a person, I can make my own decisions. But it's almost like as we progress, like post-feminist, whatever, that it's like everyone should be a feminist. If you're not a feminist, that means you believe women can't do something because of their sex, because of their gender. That makes you a sexist. I don't need to call myself a feminist. If you're not a feminist, you're a sexist.
I listened to a podcast yesterday, and this guy was talking about atheism and just not subscribing to, you know, organized religion or whatever. He goes, well, it's not like, you know, you have to all get in a club of anti-religious people or atheist people. You don't have to be a member of something to not be a member of something else, you know? You can just say, I want to be an individualist. You know, I want to be, you know, for all intents and purposes, like a libertarian of gender. You know, don't tread on me. Let's all be cool. But you know, like you said, Rose, it's you have to struggle with language. Language is
and like with atheism or religion or whatever. I mean, you don't have to define atheism in terms of theism. You can just be a humanist. It's basically the same thing.
Again, we get bogged down in the language because the natural tendency is to put everybody in a box. I need to say Rose is a boom, because that helps me get through my day. It helps me be organized. Elizabeth Ricci is a boom. You know, Lori is a boom. You know, Carrie, what are you thinking as you drive down the road thinking about feminism and feminist?
So I had such a good conversation with my boys about this when we first started the Empower Plan, because they wanted to know, what was it? Why are you guys doing this? What does feminist mean? And I'm like, well, you guys are feminists. And they're like, and they're 13 and 15. They're like, what? No, we're not feminists. And I'm like, oh yeah, you are. They're like, no. And I'm like, do you think that I should have my own credit card? Well, yeah. Do you think I should be able to apply for a loan on my own? Well, yeah. Do you think I should get paid just as much as male lawyers that do the same job for me? Well, of course. I'm like, then you are feminists. So it's really been fun for me to kind of educate the boys on how they are feminists. And I don't think there's enough of that going on. I tell them we are to find themselves as feminists. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. We got to get the cooties off of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
You can't have cooties and be a feminist. But the impetus for writing my book is called Functional Feminism, an Apolitical Guide to Women's Empowerment. My impetus for writing it was because one of our former law partners was engaged to a real powerhouse young woman. I mean, she was kicking ass, taking names, rising to the top in her field. And we were just out because, you know, we all socialize and stuff like that. And I mentioned to her about how wonderful it was that she was a feminist. She goes, ooh, you know, she recoiled. You know, don't call me that. You know, please. Oh, I'm not a feminist. Ooh. You know, and I saw the way she felt like the moniker would affect her if she adopted that. I saw how she thought her association in that would be for her and not good. And so I thought to myself, man, I hate that women are not turned on about female empowerment and stuff. And I just think it needs a rebranding. I think it's been sold in a certain way that was very not inclusive, and it needs a rebranding like so many things do. Our firm rebrands every now and then, you better believe it. Any good moving forward organism that wants to grow will do that. I want to get back to Elizabeth, though, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds with your practice, because I think we're going to launch or we're going to give a contact so everybody knows how to get in touch with Elizabeth, because if you got an immigration question, she's the one. Go to her 100%. But I want to know Elizabeth, the person. I want to know, tell me something somebody would be surprised to learn about you.
Not a lot of people know that I'm waiting on the results of my PhD application. I filed in December for a PhD
in what?
In law.
Wow.
So is that your is that what we call a
LLM?
LLM, a master's? No,
nope, it's literally a PhD in law.
Literally a PhD in law. Wow. So that tells me you want to teach some people.
Well, you know, I am teaching right now. I'm teaching high school class, legal issues, at McClay High School.
Tell us about that. What is it about, the class? Who do you teach? What are they enthusiastic about? What's the vibe of the class right now? Everything. Tell us.
We're having a great time. I have 12 students, including my daughter, and you know, I think that the boys in there would probably not think that they're feminists, and they probably don't like socialism because they don't understand either of those terms, because they both need rebranding.
Yeah.
Yesterday we had speaker Barbara Goldstein from Holocaust Education Resource Council.
Yesterday was the Remembrance Day.
Yep, and which is great because tomorrow we're going to have an executive order that reviews how we treat refugees. And I think if we looked back to the time of World War II, we would realize as a country we did not treat Jewish refugees well, and a lot of those people we turned away ended up perishing in the camps. So that was the serious thing that we did yesterday, but we also played I Dissent, which if you have not gotten that board game yet, you must. It's so much fun.
Is it RBG?
Yeah, well, but, you know, that's the theme. And the collar is on the cover of the board game. And basically what it is these different cards, and you pull out, and we couldn't play it in a regular context because we don't want the kids touching the board pieces and stuff. So I just hold up a card and I'd say, for example, milk and cereal is a soup debate. And what I'm trying to teach them, not everything is yes or no.
Right.
Right. It depends.
Hello. That's why the world has lawyers.
Depends.
It depends.
You know, what's funny? One of my friends talked about robots and what would be the first replacement in the legal field with a robot. You know what it was? Trial judge. Calling balls and strikes. When it's easy, it's easy.
Uh-huh.
But the gray area is where you, me, Carrie, Rose, Kimmy, you know, earn our keep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what I want them to know. But I also am trying to teach civil dialogue. And that's totally missing right now. So we watched a video, it's 5 minutes, by Justice Breyer. I set up an exchange with the National Constitution Center so these kids could get some really great speakers and see excellent videos. And one of them was Breyer talking about how the Supreme Court justices come to a decision. And he said, we all sit around the conference table and no one speaks over anyone else. We speak in order of seniority. We don't speak a second time unless everyone has already spoken once. No one raises their voice and everyone listens attentively. And I said to the students, that's what you need to do in life. You're not going to get anywhere being a jerk, yelling at everybody, not listening. So the game it was fun, but I wanted them to see how you have to wait your turn. You can be lively and you can have fun with this, but don't be a jerk. And the answer is usually it depends.
Second, civility. Why is that such a hard sell? It is a hard sell. Hey, Carrie, what are you thinking as you're hearing our conversation and as we're going? What would you like to contribute or ask of Elizabeth?
So it's funny that you just mentioned civility because I sat on the Florida Bar Professionalism Committee for a number of years, 5 or 6 years or so. And our biggest thing was civility. And we even made these little pins that said got civility, like got milk. And it is unbelievable how hard it is to educate lawyers on the importance of civility and how much better you do as a lawyer when you're civil. And you win your case much more often with civility than you do if you go in there like the bulldog or the bitch, you know? But I do have a question for Elizabeth. Well, number one, I don't know how the hell you have all this time to do all this stuff. You are like my superhero right now and I feel like a significant underachiever. But congratulations on your PhD. My question that I want to talk to you about is what kind of work you did on same-sex marriages in the legal field, because I saw that on your resume and I thought that was very interesting and I did not know that about you. And I want to know what's happening in that aspect of the law right now with same-sex marriages.
Sure. Elizabeth, my friend, I didn't know this. What's going on with you?
Yeah. You know, a lot of same-sex marriage was allowed in a lot of countries before it was allowed here. So a lot of times we'd have a U.S. citizen want to petition for their husband or wife, not allowed under U.S. immigration law, because we had the Defense of Marriage Act. And before DOMA was struck, I represented a lot of couples, and one in particular, right here in Tallahassee, was a transgender woman and her U.S. citizen wife. And I actually got the case approved before DOMA was even struck. They had filed on their own and were denied, and then we refiled. And then obviously DOMA was struck and gay marriage was legal throughout the country. But in the meantime, I had 2 op-eds published in the Harvard Gay and Lesbian Review. I'm very proud of that. And then I had always said that when gay marriage became legal, because I do a lot of marriages for clients and friends, you know, just because I'm a notary, I had always said, when it's legal in Florida, I will do a group ceremony. So when Judge Schenkel made that decision, I think it came out on a weekday, and I said, okay, the following Saturday, I'm going to have this big ceremony. Just bring your license and I'll do it. And I had, I think, 10 couples. They performed their ceremony. We had a couple hundred people show up. Yeah. And priest of my church got wind of it, and he basically said, before it happened, he asked me to come in and meet him, and I did. And he asked me not to do it. And for those of you who don't know, my husband, Neil, who's from Jamaica, he's Black. And the priest who asked me to do this was the priest who married us, or the priest who asked me not to do the ceremony is the one who married us. And he said, you know, it's been illegal and the scripture says not to do it. And I said, you know what? In 1969, interracial marriage wasn't allowed in Florida, and you did our ceremony. I said, I'm doing this as an attorney because I believe I'm on the right side of history. And I think you're making a mistake. And I'm going to do it. And I did it. And he said I could no longer receive communion. So basically excommunicated as a result of that. And if I wanted to, I received communion, I would have to make a public apology and take a class on Christianity.
That's going to happen sometime.
And I haven't been
back.
Wow.
I hear Carrie chuckling because Carrie's Catholic. I've talked to Carrie about that. But I also have seen some change within religious leadership on these issues, and it seems to be growing. It's not just Episcopal. I mean, it's growing. So I'm encouraged by that. I'm not happy whenever I have to bang somebody over the head and beat the hell out of them to get them to do the right thing. I'm not going to throw them a parade, but I am happy to see it. I am happy to see it. Carrie, what do you think about that as a Catholic and the things that you brought that up about the same-sex marriage? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was raised Catholic. I went to Jesuit school my whole life, and a
Great
little bit
education.
of
Great education.
Really, great education. But I've always been an independent thinker, so I'm not. I wouldn't say that I'm practicing Catholic now. I have a mixture of religious beliefs from anywhere from agnosticism to atheism to Catholicism and Buddhism and whatever. So I'm kind of a mixture. But my mother is very strict Catholic, and we debate this all the time. And the Pope has come out, and I think we've got a great Pope right now, and he's come out and embraced same-sex marriage. And he's like, you love who you love, and that's all there is to it, is as long as you're a good person.
If you're not somebody,
right.
Yeah. If you're loving,
we're back to just don't be a jerk, right? That's really the rule.
Right, and you know, Lori and Kimmy both, well, I don't want to say, they might have some interesting stuff to contribute to this conversation too with same-sex marriage.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to share?
Oh, me? Sure.
Anybody. But yes, of course you, Kimmy.
I don't know what to share. I am totally pro anybody being able to marry whoever they want to marry. Well, of course not people marrying minors, but
minors are incapacitated people. As long as you marry one other human who's, you know, of mental, you know, competency and legal majority, go with it, dude. Go with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled about the progress. I love all the progress that I've seen in my life. I mean, just thinking back to when I was even in high school, and there were just so much, I don't know, so many laws against same-sex marriage, gender identity stuff. I just see so much progress.
I do too.
In our nation,
my God, I just feel so, I feel so strongly. People should be who they are. They should love who they are. They should have the same legal rights as everybody else, no matter the color of their skin, their gender identity, what kind of sexual orientation they are. It doesn't matter. Everybody deserves equal rights, and that's all there is to it. I feel very strongly about that.
Why is this hard?
I don't know.
But hey, I've got a question.
Yeah, Kimmy, please.
I've got a question for Elizabeth, which is having to do with your work with veterans. I had no idea that somebody could serve in our military when they were not a citizen, and that they could then be denied citizenship afterwards. I know that you have done work, pro bono work, for folks in that category, so please tell us all about that.
That blew my mind, Kimmy, when she told me that. Talk about that.
This is a mind blow. It is a mind blow. So we have somewhere between 530 and 640,000 foreign-born vets alive today. And the problem is that so many of them were recruited when they had no immigration status whatsoever, or were in an immigration status that did not allow for enlistment, i.e. citizenship or permanent residency. And the recruiters say, no problem. We're family. Once we're military, we'll take care of it. There's no law that allows for that. That's not true. So these guys, 17, 18, 19 years old, oh, okay. And they enlist and they don't give it a second thought. Why would they? They're putting their lives in this guy's hand. Why would they think that it's not true? Recruiter gets the bonus and takes off. 10, 20, 30, 40 years later, that guy goes, especially in Florida, we're a real ID compliant state, goes to get a driver license. And they had it all along, but now that we're more compliant with real ID, the agent at the DMV says, oh, not only are you not a citizen, you're totally undocumented. Or goes to get a passport, you're not a citizen. And that's actually the basis of my PhD application. That's what I want to explore, because what happens is these guys leave the military, they register to vote and vote because they think they're citizens. And that is basically a strict liability offense.
It's a
Not
traitor.
only, yeah, you can never naturalize, and you can be deported. It is a felony to vote if you're a non-citizen.
I cannot.
So I have one client right now out of Miami who actually was on Secret Service detail for the president, for President Clinton. Turns out he's not only is he not a citizen, not a permanent resident, totally undocumented. I can't even get him a driver license to go and get the ID. He served in Vietnam. I can't even get him an ID so he can go into immigration and get his fingerprints taken. So that's something I want to change, either through legislation or maybe a special bill, and hopefully get immigration USCIS to comply. There's some rules that they're applying to vets that don't apply. A good moral character rule that applies to everyone else doesn't apply to vets, but I don't think their adjudicators know that. So that's my pro bono mission, is to educate them about that rule not applying to veterans. And I do those pro bono. I do them all around the country. It's been great. I partnered with the American Legion.
Wow. So are you able to help them get citizenship? Have you seen?
Yeah, how successful are you with that?
Yeah, I've had probably a dozen or 15 of those cases. One of the bigger ones was Mario Hernandez. That was all over the world news. And I did get him his citizenship finally, after he had a long career in the federal government, and even transported Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh. Unbeknownst to anyone, he was totally undocumented. Holger Runschke, no, Axel Runschke was his name, excuse me, also in Tallahassee. We were successful with him. That made the news. And right now I've got Paul Canton, who's stateless, because if you enlist in our military, generally speaking, you're going to be stateless. Your own country won't take you. So I have a guy outside of Gainesville who's stateless. He served during Vietnam. And I've got this guy out of Miami right now also served. Gainesville was Desert Storm. And the guy out of Miami was Vietnam. And these are all cases where they have agreed to let me talk to people like you all, because they agree that if more people find out that military service doesn't make for citizenship, that maybe they'll help somebody else realize, oh, I'm not a citizen. So this will be my PSA. If you're a foreign-born vet and you don't have a U.S. passport, or you don't have a certificate of citizenship or a certificate of naturalization, and you never had one, chances are you're not a U.S. citizen and you should seek help. And I would encourage you to go to the American Legion. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'd be happy to talk to you.
Elizabeth, my mind is blown. I cannot believe somebody would be willing to put their life on the line for their country, meaning all of us. Mm-hmm. And because they have some effed up paperwork.
Mm-hmm. And the recruiter's on his way. We've had a couple of recruiters been arrested and served time for making these promises, but then what happens to the vet?
How does that help the guy? I mean, it's not criminal. Stop incentivizing criminal behavior. The fish rots from the head. Those workers who are just, carrying out orders, I don't see them being the responsible people. I see that coming from leadership, and leadership needing to be held accountable. But I am just blown away that somebody could sacrifice so much, even if they come out fine. Let's say they don't get shot at and killed, which they were willing to do for us. Mm-hmm. They're all messed up in the head. Maybe they've seen some things no person should ever see. They're not a suitable spouse, or they're not an appropriate parent, and they end up just living on the streets in a horrible life because they don't fit in anywhere. And the thought to me that someone ends up like that, who was willing to lay down their life just so that I can continue to have the precious freedom that I have enjoyed for 53 years, insults my gut, insults my heart, it hurts my dignity. Rose, you've been shaking your head a lot. What are your thoughts on what Elizabeth has shared with us?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that Elizabeth's done, some of the publicity on those cases, and I remember learning in school, like I don't remember if it was law school, if it was before then, that depending on, you know, the location and the system that you're in, there are certain other professions where you can't be that if you're not a citizen. You, in some places, they won't let you be a teacher or a cop. You don't have
it used to be in
American
Florida, you could be a
values
lawyer.
to be able to carry out that, you know, that way of thinking. You might indoctrinate the children, or you might, you know, whatever, when you're a cop. And that you can even be in the military without being a citizen, and that if you are, you don't end up coming out of it with the rights of a citizen. You're going to a foreign country and fighting for American values is crazy. So
it's not rational. It's not a logical, rational system. And that's what frustrates me with any form of government. And I respect people like you and your husband who can work within the government systems, because you are in civil court, criminal court, you're dealing with executive orders, you're dealing with state policy, you're dealing with government executive, like state level executive orders, you're dealing with other countries and their ever-changing thing. I don't even know, because we all have to take continuing legal education and demonstrate some competency, or at least awareness that we should have it. But I'm just going, who the hell makes sure you're up to snuff? Because that would be like 14 tests a year you would have to take. It's nuts.
Well, I complied with my CLE, I think, within 2 weeks of the deadline, just because I take them, I don't even record it.
Honey, I've got to. This is my life. This isn't CLE. This is how I live. No, I can't. I want to ask, is Lori still here? Lori, are you still on?
No,
She may not be.
connection dropped.
Okay, I want to hear about 2 more things, because we promised this and I want to deliver. Deciding to go to law school, going to law school for a woman. If you want to talk about that, if you had an interesting experience or a challenging experience, if it was easy for you, maybe not so much. And then we want to talk about being a woman-owned business. You know, you are a woman, you own a business. It is a very successful law firm. It's a business. I don't care if you're selling widgets or selling time, whatever you're doing. And you work with your husband. Let's hear about that.
Well, when I was in the Peace Corps, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I had a lot of free time. And my dad sent me some LSAT books to study. So I just figured when I was done, I would take the LSAT, and that's exactly what I did. And I didn't know I was going to do immigration. Again, I thought I was going to be a lobbyist. Took immigration in law school. Didn't really have any issues with sexism in law school. But then, you know, I'm an attorney here in Tallahassee. Again, hit the ground running. I didn't do any other kind of law other than immigration, right? And I was, you know, 27. And I remember a judge once, my last name is Italian, it means curly hair. And a judge asked me once what branch of the mafia my family was from, because I was Italian. I thought,
was that judge a man?
Yes, it was. And you probably know that judge, but I won't name their name. And I thought, would you have asked a man that question? That's really interesting. I still get, not as much anymore, but I would get, you know, may talk to the attorney. I want to see the attorney. And I say, yeah, that's me. And I know you all get up your equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, that gets a little old. But I like when somebody says, oh, well, I want the man attorney. So, oh, okay, he's down the hall, and I'll walk him over, and then they'll tell him their issue, and he'll say, I don't know what the answer is. You got to talk to Elizabeth.
Always satisfying.
Awesome. Yeah,
it is awesome.
That's awesome.
But we bought
my Spidey, my hair is tingling on 5'9" of my body. I'm just so, but I'm not going to say anything because we could get off the rails really quickly.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're here for.
And you know, I see it with, you know, a lot of my clients come from cultures where that's totally acceptable. You know, they'll call Neil, the attorney, and then, you know, me, the secretary. And I remember a client one time said something, you know, in Spanish, the word enfermera is nurse and doctor is doctor. And I said something about a doctora, in other words, a woman doctor. And a woman said to me, well, you know, enfermera is the word for woman. And I said, no, that's the word for nurse. You can be a female nurse, you can be a male nurse, you can be a male doctor. And I remember she was just, mind blow. But, I think it comes with the territory, and I'm trying to make a great example for my kids. I teach them all the time to be assertive and, not to take no for an answer and stand up for what they believe in. And if, my mom's generation certainly did that. Neil's mom's part of that same generation. They couldn't wear pants to restaurants and, all those other ridiculous stories. So, we are getting better. We're not there yet, but we're making strides. And as one of you all said, things have changed a lot since high school. Things have changed a lot in the last 10 years.
Things have changed a lot in the last 4 years. They've changed a lot. I have a funny, just quickly, have I told this story before? I have coming on. But I worked in a law firm in the 90s, and they told us we needed to wear knee highs, if we wore pants, and we needed to wear pantyhose with a dress, and that dresses were preferable. Mm-hmm. And no open toes and no open heels. That'd be like a full pump. And so I was just like, okay, whatever. I didn't think about things like this back then. I just did not. I did not. But one of my friends, one of my coworkers, we were paralegals, and she was like, F this, I'm not. And she is not, let me tell you, she is not she would not want to be identified as a feminist. She's a Republican, very proud of it. Not that there's Republicans are bad. I'm not trying to say that. She's not a Trumpican. She's a Republican. Those are two totally different classes of people. But anyway, she goes into the managing partner's office and she goes, I would like to talk to you. Can I have some time on your calendar? He said, sure. She goes in and she goes, I want to talk about yeast infections.
This is awesome.
He lost all his color. He got all sweaty. He's like, what's happening? Who's having a yeast infection? What's going on? Is that like, do we have to shut the office down? Does everybody need to get a shot? What's going on with these yeast infections? She goes, that's what happens to women in Tallahassee, Florida, when they walk around in freaking pantyhose in the summer. And it's uncomfortable. I have to use a bunch of sick leave. The guys don't have to use sick leave. It's not cool. It's not cool. Next thing we know, we get an email, no discussion. This man never even says a word back to her. We get an email that says, hey, wear whatever you're comfortable with, girls. We're behind you 100%. But somebody's got to show their natural ass. That is my point. Sometimes you've got to be that bitch. You've got to be that one who shows her natural ass. Now, I have embraced that. I very much enjoy living that life because I'm not married to anybody. I got a grown kid who can take me or leave me. And I got a partner who supports me no matter what I do. So watch out, world. But that's how I feel. I want to go around. We're about to wrap up for tonight. So before we ask Elizabeth for some closing remarks, I want to go back around. Let's start with Rose. What are your final thoughts? Any questions? How you want to wrap this one up?
I think we've covered a lot of it. I was curious, just I don't know if it does or does not, but Elizabeth, do you get any blowback from 90 Day Fiance? Has that changed the way people think about immigration law at all? Or has anyone said anything to you about that?
I have had a couple of clients ask me, they saw such and such on there, that's totally an exaggeration of the system. They did ask some of my clients to be on there. I had a much older woman, U.S. citizen woman, than her husband, and they were going to be on that show, but decided at the end not to do that. But along those same lines, I see people all the time, well, I saw on TV, or this person did it this way. Don't do that. Don't compare apples to oranges, And I tell my students that all the time. Every case is unique.
Yeah. Actually ask a lawyer.
Yeah.
Do you get legal representation? Some advice? Carrie, what are your thoughts finally today?
So I have a good book recommendation for everybody. This one came from my mom, and my mom has worked most of her life with Hispanic refugees, most of them from Guatemala, actually, through the Catholic Church. And she was recommended a book from her book club. It's called American Dirt. It is a wonderful read. I think it's on Oprah's book club. I don't really follow Oprah's book club, and what it is it's eye-opening, and it humanizes the story of refugees and what they're going through. So I won't give the book away, but it's a great read. I'm telling you, it's about a woman whose entire family is killed by the cartels. And then she and her young son have to become refugees because they have to run from the cartels and get up to America. And it's how they do it. And she is I get the chills talking about it, because she's just like us in her regular life in Mexico. And then all of a sudden her husband is a news reporter. He reports on the cartels and they kill the entire family except for her and her young son. Of course it's fiction, but it's based in reality. And it just humanizes the story about these refugees. Yeah.
What's it called, Carrie?
It's really a compelling, it's called American Dirt, and it's a compelling read, and it's eye-opening, and for
I dig it 100%. I'm so excited to hear that, because I want to start a book club and I want to get serious about reading. That's one of my goals for the year. Kimmy, as we wind up today, what are your thoughts? Do you have any last questions, thoughts after what Elizabeth just downloaded on us? My mind is blown.
Elizabeth, I had a question, which was, I was interested to know how the pandemic has affected your client base.
Well, I think like everybody at the beginning, didn't know what the heck to do, but people have gotten very much used to Zoom. I had a client today who had reached out to me a while ago and said, I don't do Zoom, I'm old, I don't do Skype, I don't do phone, I want to come in person. And I said, you're not going to bully me. Yeah, I said, I have a pregnant employee, I'm not going to do that to her. No. They said, well, I would recommend that you see someone else, because I am not seeing anyone in person right now. We're just staff. And when we're outside of our own offices, we're masked. Right. And he wrote back and he said, okay, I want you to be my attorney anyway. And finally today we had our Zoom. So people, they're changing. We're all changing. We know that we have to get higher tech and go with the flow. Otherwise we're going to suffer. And this is the most important thing in people's lives. My client, this is make or break. They may go back and be killed, or they may lose their business or whatever. So they want to make it work. And if I say it's got to be Zoom or it's got to be phone, that's how it's got to be.
Yeah, you've got to have personal parameters. I was just talking to our marketing director, Lori Finn, about this yesterday. She was having problems with some of our vendors telling her what their requirements were for her communicating with them. I said, why do you accept that? You get to make that determination. These are people who are competing amongst other very qualified people for the business we're giving them. They don't dictate their terms to us. We dictate our terms to them. If they can't meet it, then we will go with one of the other very qualified vendors competing for their work. So yeah, own your shit, own your space. I'm so sick of hearing from women going, I don't feel like anybody hears me. I don't feel like I own my space. I'm like, because you're not being heard and you're not owning your space. Start doing that. Now I'll teach them how, but the thought that that's not available to them, that's what I want to change. Okay, let's see. Are we from Rose or Carrie? Who's next on finalizing our thoughts today?
Did you guys hear my book recommendation?
I did, and I dug it.
Okay, good.
I think.
Okay, good. It's really good. My phone rang, and I'm on this Zoom, and I think it messed up my Zoom. So I'm sorry if I cut off.
No, you're working. We're jamming. We're doing this every day. We're grinding it out. We're hustling. I love it. I love empowered women. Rose, what are your final thoughts for today?
I thought I already had my final thoughts.
Give me more final thoughts, Rose.
Another final on your final. A final on your final,
like
Rose.
A real final, not that bullshit you gave me a minute ago. Some real final, Rose. Okay, I guess that means Kimmy's left, right?
Well, thank you. Final thoughts. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
This milky thing got me sassy, Rose. It got me sassy.
It's a little strong.
I'm just like sassy and not keeping up with quotes.
That's so funny. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. We appreciate it.
No, Kimmy, go.
Thank you, Kimmy. And I do have a parting thought, and that is, people always say who don't support immigration that people should leave the country if they don't like it here. Isn't that the same idea? People are leaving their country because there's something wrong there and they're coming here. Exactly. So they don't even understand.
Listen, I stopped looking for logic in the argument about probably about mid 2015. Yeah, my expectations were lowered. They are rising, and I think we're coming back. I want to thank you, Elizabeth. You are always a delight. You are always an inspiration. I love to see you parent your girls, because my passion is, promoting and protecting women and girls, but mostly girls, because that's the future. And when we put good girls into the world, good empowered women, they empower other women. They bring them up so much faster. I mean, if you look at the gap, I put out a meme about Kamala Harris, and it showed every vice president until her. She's the only woman. And then it had little circles around her, or squares in color about, you know, up until this point she was a slave, up until this point she couldn't vote, up until this point she couldn't have a checking account, those sorts of things. And look at the massive, you know, progress we've made in such a small time. And to me now, it's like a super synergy of that. So I cannot wait to see what our girls that we are raising, what they grow to be and become and do, and the leadership that they show. I love that you are one of the women raising them, and you have an empowered man in your life who's supporting you in your practice and your children. You turn me on in every way. I love everything about you.
Well, you know, my little one, you're her idol. And she came and spent the day with you. And that was in our end of the year letter. She said, I want to be a personal injury attorney, and I want to be like Dana.
Well, guess what? The last one who did that, the last one who sent me a letter like that when she was in school who did that, she's killing it as a personal injury attorney in South Florida. So, so there's a pattern there. There's a precedent. I don't expect her to do any less. In fact, I expect her to do so much. I expect her to change the world, change our thoughts, and help more people than Carrie, Kimmy, and Rose and I ever have. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Kimmy. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you to Lori, who had to bug out a little bit. Thank you to Whitney, Greg, and Brandon, who make this all possible every week. So we will see you again next week for another episode of the Empower Hour, brought to you by the Empower Plant by Fasig Brooks. Y'all have a good weekend.